This one was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag #CornyDriveThru from Philip the Gray.
Wait a minute, Philip the Great or Philip the Gray?
No, Philip the Gray, Grey.
So he's gray, but he's the only one. It's the only Philip that's gray.
Perhaps. We really don't know, but we'll see what we can find out about that for a future episode. After CM Punk's back-to-back losses in the UFC, do you think he still adds value to pro wrestling? Also, do you think that Bill Watts would have fired him? Some fans think it hurts the credibility of pro wrestling and he should not go back. So that's really a hot-button issue, Jim, not even just about CM Punk being a fighter, but if he ever did want to go back to wrestling, does the idea that he did not have any victories in the UFC actually hurt him in wrestling?
Long story or long explanation short, it used to woulda, but it doesn't anymore. But to the bigger picture, he still has value, obviously, to pro wrestling. He has more value to pro wrestling than pro wrestling has value to him, from what I understand at this point, because he, keeps saying he's not going to do it. Yeah, he could draw a house, anywhere he went tomorrow just for the novelty of, is this the only time you'll ever see him again, etc. All the reasons we've discussed. If you can promote something that people want to see as a once in a lifetime thing, then yeah, it's going to get over. And then you just don't do it again too quick and spoil the gimmick. But no, he could draw, big the first time for anybody, and I'm sure on a continuous basis if he wanted to. But it seems like it's more, mental masturbation at this point, because he's not going to do it. But to the bigger picture, did he make wrestling look bad? Not anymore. Unfortunately, he would have in the days when guys needed to legitimately be viewed as tough, yes, for a guy to lose twice in another sport to guys who are not big names in that sport, which is why that you never saw the big boxer versus wrestler matches until the boxer was either past his prime or it was never the top wrestler, and more of a gimmick type of thing. You never saw the equivalent boxing champion and wrestling champion, and the closest thing was Ali and Inoki, and that actually, it was completely fucked up in every way, but it was a landmark match. But you never saw that with anybody, and Inoki would not have gone into that thinking he was going to do the job, because it was his whole goddamn idea of how to get over. Ali, thought he was going to have some fun and make $6 million, and then people talked him out of shit, and then it fell apart from there. But the bigger thing to me is, at this point, does Punk want to – I know Dana White said that's a wrap, and yes, but he could fight somewhere else. He could fight for Bellator or whatever, and he may still make huge paydays. But does he want to be the guy that on the independent wrestling show? Does he want to be one of the guys on the independent, not even the guy on the independent wrestling show? Because, I mean, there's all respect in the world that I love the fact that he cut that fucking promo. I love the fact that he got a last run out of a last year of contract or almost last year, whatever, that he strong-armed because he was so over. I love a guy that quits on his own terms and goes home and says, fuck it. And I love the determination that is taken for him not having been a fighter or any kind of competitive athlete before wrestling, to do that and get in that shape and et cetera, and actually fight. But now he's proven that he's got all that dedication, all that heart and all those guts, but he's not nearly world class at it. So when he was on top in the wrestling business and quit because he didn't have anything else to prove, now when it's become obvious that he's probably not going to go back to the top company in the MMA business, does he want to be one of the indie guys that does it just because he loves it? Once again, in the olden days, guys, nobody would have done something like this because, well, for one thing, there was no MMA, but Punk came from a time in wrestling when everybody was already starting to view it as entertainment anyway. And was he marketed as any kind of shoot fighter? No. So I mean, people are to the point. I don't think it hurts wrestling now as badly as it used to, also because people know that, hey, Brock Lesnar's a pro wrestler, but so is, goddamn, I don't insert somebody who ain't tough. I don't want to bury anybody just offhand. They know that just because the guy's legitimate doesn't mean he can't work or be working, and vice versa. But in the old days, it would have gotten a guy over tremendously to leave wrestling. And hell, he got Ken Patera and those guys over. I mean, not like the Olympics didn't, but a few of the guys that were on the World's Strongest Man competition on CBS in the late 70s, they had a few wrestlers, and 80s, they had a few wrestlers, and those guys got network TV and hung with the strongest men in the world, said, look good. And then poor Crusher Blackwell, who was more, I think, gimmick at that point, but I think Vern got him in somehow. He hurt his back and fucked up and made the boys look bad, because I think he punked out and didn't even finish. But anyway, at this point now, everybody knows that Brock Lesnar can and was the UFC champion, but also can still be the fake pro wrestler. But Punk was never marketed as being a shooter to begin with. So he was a fan and determined.